Hi, Luca. Welcome to the West Coast Press podcast. How are
Thank
you
you.
doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. If anyone does not know, Luca has been an intern for us over the last 6 months or so. He's done a great job over football and now with basketball coverage as well. And he is coming on today to talk about basketball as he has been in tune with a lot going on in Northern California basketball. So let's get things started right off with just kind of what the best invitational was, as there's obviously a ton of great ones in this area.
I think it's an interesting question because there's a lot of great invitationals, especially at the start of the season. They have a couple during MLK weekend, and I think it's great for non-league contests to get kind of who's the best team around. And in my opinion, I think that the top one is the Gridley Invitational up in Gridley, California, which is pretty far north. I think it's the best personally because they bring talent from all around NorCal, and there's a great story behind it, really good basketball. And this year ended on a buzzer beater with Salesian being Branson, which are two of the top teams. A couple others to mention are the MLK Classic, the NorCal Tip Off, and the Simply Challenge.
Yeah, that's definitely a top one that's been around for a long time. But the question is, does talent result into wins in the invitational and just in any basketball game in high school?
Taking two teams actually from the Gridley Invitational, Reardon's and Salesian. I thought those were a couple pretty interesting teams because at the start of the year, I was super high on Reardon, and they had a lot of talent. They brought in a guy out of prolific prep, Zion Sensley, and they got in a bunch of transfers from Priory and from Pinole Valley. And they've looked like a great team. Don't get me wrong; they still are probably the top team in the CCS, but they haven't really put it together completely. Whether that's through kind of transfer rules or whatnot, but I just think that's interesting to think about how better programs will usually do better because of their coaching. And a great example of that is Salesian, who has been a great program for a while, has a lot of really good depth, and like probably have 7, 8 guys who are really, really solid. And I think they only have one Division 1 commit, but all their guys are really strong. Their coaching is really good. And I think that even having less talent will still result to more wins as they ended up beating Reardon by like 20 in the MLK Classic.
And that falls right into line of you want to talk about the NCS playoff race because there are so many good teams in that race right now. So what are some of the standouts that you're looking for in the North Coast section?
Yeah, I think that the North Coast section is probably one of the best section playoff races we've seen in a long time. I don't know for sure because I haven't been watching NorCal basketball for like 10 years yet, but I think there's a lot of great teams like Salesian, Branson, De La Salle, Granada, Redwood, San Ramon Valley, University, Clayton Valley, Moreau Catholic. Like there's a ton, probably 15 teams with a chance at getting to the top division, or like there's a lot of great teams. A couple of standouts are Salesian, Branson, De La Salle, and Granada, who are, in my opinion, top 10 teams in all of NorCal, and all have literally what it takes to be honestly the NorCal champion to all together. You can even add teams like Redwood, who's really good at getting upsets over top teams, San Ramon Valley, who has a bunch of really good guys. And I think it's super interesting because literally any team could win it. And I don't think we'll I don't know.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting race. If I had to put you on the spot and make you make a prediction right now, who would you choose?
Um I think I'd go with Salesian. I think they're just the most proven team. I think they're sitting at 20-1 right now, beating all their competition. I would pick Branson. I think Branson is probably a little bit better. Um, they would be a little bit better, but because they ended up playing in the Gridley Invitational and Salesian ended up winning by 3 in overtime, it's not really fair to Salesian to put Branson over them. I think Dale Sal and Granada are just a tier down from that.
Yeah, and De La Salle did just beat Granada last night as
Yeah,
well. I know it was a closer game, but
he's 9 points.
yeah, so there's definitely going to be a ton of fun in that open division when that time does come. But you want to talk about the Sac Joaquin section a little bit, and we've talked about it on this podcast before with Jack, how the Bay Area has really been able to dominate other sections, and Sac Joaquin section has been one of them. So just talk about them right now.
I think that the Sac Joaquin section has had a bunch of great teams in the past. I mean, you can look at Modesto Christian won a couple years back. Sheldon won a couple years back. They had a bunch of really great teams. Intercom's been really good the last couple years. And I still think there's a couple good teams right now. Monterey Trail, Modesto Christian, Vanden, Rockland, Intercom, just to name a couple. But I don't think they have the talent to compete with sections such as the North Coast section, or even you could say the Central Coast section. And I wouldn't say they fell off or anything because they still have a lot of youth. If you look at Jalen Virgil out of Laguna Creek or Sincere Hudson out of Intercom, there's still a lot of great talent, especially in the youth. But I just think the Sacramento area is just falling off at least a little bit.
Yeah, they're definitely younger right now, and there's definitely a ton of talent there. But it seems like the Bay Area has been able to bring a talent to the top this year. But that brings us to your main point here: is who will be on the NorCal first team if we had to choose them right now?
I think it's a really tough question. There's a lot of great guys. It's so hard to choose a couple. If I were to personally give my picks, I would put Aaron Clater out of Salesian, Jace Butler out of Branson, Zion Sensley out of Reardon, Alec Blair out of De La Salle, and Tunde Yesufu out of St. Joseph. And to name the reserves or bench, I would give it to Connor Munson out of Clovis North, Samitri Carr out of Branson, Tyler Thompson out of Vanden, Gavin Rip out of Mitty, and Finley Keefe out of Branson.
Yeah, that would be a loaded team, and maybe one day we can start an all-star game and get all those guys to play in a game all together because that would be a ton of fun. Well, thank you, Luca, so much for joining the West Coast Press podcast. We'll definitely have to have you on again as we get closer to the end of that NCS playoff race. And have a great one. Thank you.
Thank you so much.